Hello everyone, my name is Laura and you're watching the Bee and Bird 2 channel where we talk about testimonies and the goodness of God. And today I just want to share a story of something that happened in my life that really changed my point of view on generosity and materialism and possessions, things that we own. And this happened I don't know, 15 years ago or so. I used to honestly hold on to things that I owned, material possessions, kind of tightly. I worked hard, my husband worked hard for what we had, and I always kind of had that scarcity kind of mindset that I was operating under, if I'm being honest with you. I was always kind of afraid of not having enough. I felt like I really needed to hold on to the things that I had. And I learned something from a friend of mine, and it really changed the way that I think and see things that I have in my life. And so I just want to share a quick story of that experience, if you will, with knowing this person. I wish I could say that this person that really influenced me in this way was a Christian, but actually this was a non-believer, and she was a dear friend of mine who I worked with and had get-togethers with outside of the office. We were friends, and I know that she wasn't a believer because she would be willing to talk about religion. She would talk about Jesus, but I knew that it wasn't something that she was choosing and wanting for her own life. And she would just say that it was because she had some negative experiences working, and knowing other Christians, and she just didn't think it was something that was attractive to her. And as a result, she kind of leaned more towards universalism or Eastern religions. And so we had those conversations, and she was always open to talk and have that conversation. And there was never any, animosity or anything like that. We always used to marvel, like, wow, they're so open to talking about and listening to new ideas, and you don't hear that a lot. There's a lot of people that are just closed-minded. They believe what they believe, and they don't want to discuss it or talk about it. So we always appreciated how receptive they were to conversation and being willing to agree to disagree in cases where we felt differently. And it didn't affect our friendship in a negative way to disagree on a topic. And I thought that was just something remarkable. It was something that I hadn't really experienced too much in previous friendships. I would have a friend, and then you would disagree on an idea or a topic, and it just seemed like they would not want to be friends anymore or not hang out. But they were just different. They were different in that they were open to talking and discussing new ideas and continuing the friendship. Anyway, and knowing her was such a blessing to me because she was so generous. And when I was doing that talk yesterday about New Testament generosity, the real life example that came to mind was actually my non-believer friend that I used to know. I would say that she was one of the most generous people that I've ever experienced life with. And I was thinking about some of the things that I witnessed being friends with her. And it really convicted me because at the time I thought, I am a Christian and I am way more stingy and uptight than she is. And she's a non-believer. And I began to feel like it shouldn't be that way, right? Like, I am a Christian and I should be leading the way in generosity and an example to others. But I did learn from watching her some things that I've later adopted into the way I just live my life. And one of the things that was really moving to me was I went to her house once for a visit, and I remember that I complimented her. She had a really beautiful geode, like one of those rocks that's cut open so you can see the inside. And I said, "Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful geode. It's stunning." And she said, "Oh, you like that?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, have it." And I'm like, "Well, no, I don't need it. Like, I'm just saying it's pretty." And she's like, "No, I've had it, I've enjoyed it for a while, but now you can have it and you can enjoy it for a while." And she said, "If you get tired of it, you can give it to somebody else and they can enjoy it for a little while." And I thought, what is this way of, viewing possessions? And is this something that I can learn from? Now, I do want to say it wasn't one of those like, it was just a rock from the ground. It wasn't anything that was like a witchcraft crystal item. It wasn't like that. It was just a decoration of, that you would get from a geode store or something like that. Anyway, she insisted that I take it home, and I did, and I thought it was a reminder to me about holding on to things loosely. And she was that way with everything and everyone. I mean, if you came over her house and you said, I really like that painting, or I really like that, whatever it is, a pen, she would just say, well, it's yours now. And I just was boggled by that. I was like, how can you do that? I said, you would just give everything away. And she'd be like, well, I don't need it, or I have another one, or that's fine, I can get something else somewhere else. And just very loosely holding on to things. She was very generous with offering rides to people. If there was somebody who couldn't get somewhere because they didn't have a car, she would always say, like, I'll give you a ride, and offer that. Customers would often bring her presents because she was a very good at customer service, and so a lot of times customers would be appreciative and they would bring her gifts, and she would always give those gifts away. I remember there's like one time she had gotten, I think, maybe some chocolate covered strawberries, and she maybe ate one or two and she gave the rest away to the office. She would bring things in for people. I remember another time she had gone to like the farmer's market and had picked up some chocolate covered coffee beans, and she said, have you ever had chocolate covered coffee beans? And I said, no. And she said, oh, well, you should try some. And so she gave me some of these beans, and she said, do you like them? And I said, yeah, they're good. And she said, here, take them. And I was just like blown away that this was a lifestyle for her. She lived her life with the attitude of giving and generosity and gifts and offering rides. She would often do work for free for people that couldn't afford it. Not all the time, but she would maybe say, like, well, I can come out one time to your house for free and help you with this thing. She was a dog trainer, and so she would help people with their dogs, and she would do a lot of it for no fee. Even though she was licensed as a dog trainer, she could have nickel and dimed and billed everybody for everything she did, but oftentimes she would just give advice for free. I knew that when we actually ended up getting a dog, I could text her and she would answer questions, and she never told me I was bothering her or asking her too many questions about dogs. And she could have said something like, well, why don't you sign up for a session with me and I'll go up, but she didn't do that. She just gave the information. And I thought, I have to be better. I have to live life more open-handed. And if somebody, appreciates something, if I'm in a position to be able to give it, to share it, why not, right? I mean, all these things can be burned away and lost in a moment. And when we share things that we own with other people, we get to enjoy it by sharing it. And a lot of times our possessions, especially when we have a lot of them, they can begin to own us. I had an uncle, and he used to say, if you can't afford to lose something, you can't afford to buy it. And I thought about that and like what that means, and how, there might be something that you stretch to afford. And I'll say maybe something that would be like a luxury item, like something you don't need. An example, like a kayak, for example. You don't need that, but you want that. So you like stretch to buy it. But then once you buy it, since you had to stretch so far to purchase it, you're always concerned about like if it's going to get stolen, if it's going to get damaged. And it ends up occupying space in your mind where you're concerned about protecting it. And the more you own, I find that the material possessions do start to kind of own you. Now it's like, oh, I need insurance to make sure that I'm protected against this loss of this thing. And I'm not saying all insurance is bad by any means, but just the idea that when you own things, they do come with burdens and repairs and maintenance expenses, and those things do cost time and money oftentimes. And things that seem initially like super enjoyable, they start to wear on you over time. For example, we had a fish tank and we really enjoyed it. It was a big one. I think it was 150 gallons. And we did enjoy it for many, many years. But there became a time when it became taxing to have to keep replacing the filters and keep replacing the food. And then it was the cleaning every week. And after years and years and years, we were just done with it. It was like, we're tired of cleaning it, tired of maintaining it, tired of replacing things. And we eventually ended up selling the fish and selling the fish tank and getting rid of it, because that's just an example of how the things that we own, and you could multiply that times many things, like maybe a swimming pool, or not that these things are bad, but I'm saying that they can compound themselves and end up creating extra stress in our lives, extra worry in our lives. You're afraid of losing something, and it kind of occupies that space. So I've learned that if I can, to keep an open hand on something. Of course, there's things that we need and we have to provide for our family, but if it's something that doesn't fall into that line, I try to just really keep an open hand that, I can give something away. Even if somebody says, oh, no, thanks, that's okay, I don't want that thing. It is freeing to just offer it. Be like, oh, would you like this? And, oh, thank you so much, but no, I'm good with that, I think about her all the time. And, our lives have changed and we've moved, and I'm not in touch with her anymore for any other reason other than just relocation and kind of falling away in terms of, relationship with, we don't work together anymore. Just natural progression of just life changes. But I say that I think about her all the time. And anytime I feel tempted to cling on to something, I remember the example that she showed me of generosity and giving and being open-handed and never letting a possession own her, but being free to just release it and let it go. And it's something that I try to adopt. And I think that the scriptures yesterday that we read about New Testament generosity echo that same mentality of being free to give. If you have 2 coats and someone has none, give that one coat the extra coat that you have, because you can. And, if you need another coat, you can replace it later. But to just always be free to just live in the moment with giving and the opportunity that's there. And, I don't know. I hope that is meaningful, and that I conveyed it in a way that, makes sense, and that it can impact you as well. And think about living life free from attachment of material possessions. And I mean, when you think about it, material possession, the word possession is possess in there. So it's like it kind of does start to maybe get into our minds a little bit more than it should. I don't know, just personal reflection, something to think about. I'm not telling you can't own any of these things at all. It's personal. And so I just wanted to share that, to kind of, I don't know, to share it, to think about that. So I don't know. Okay, I'm going on. So whatever, I'm going to let it go. Thank you. Let me know, and I will talk to you later.